Yep. All right. I was not zeicha to. Yeah. Okay, my dear student holy friends, it's wonderful to see you. This piece of the sugya is to a very significant extent where Rav Kook is going to get into the tachlis of everything that he has shared so far. Of course, Kedarka B'Kodesh, he's going to say it incredibly poetically, but he's going to nail down into the kishkas of everything that we've been speaking about, how to make this work. So, hey, everything that we've learned about Shabbos and Shabboson and Shemitah and Yovel and the transformative properties of all of these mitzvahs, he writes as follows. He says, and this, Baruch Hashem, there's no such thing as Mikra in the world, and I came in by the end of Rabbi Simi Shabtai speaking about the Ramchal's understanding of Torah. Rav Kook picks up from there. He writes, the Torah, with its knowledge, its laws, its chukim, for the life of the individual and the community, that is the window of clarity. We've explained before, those of you that were here, we've explained before the notion of Aspaklaria Me'ira is the capacity to peer through the window called this world to see the presence of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The Aspaklaria HaMe'ira is what Moshe Rabbeinu was zocher to, which is why Torah is itself the Aspaklaria HaMe'ira. Moshe Rabbeinu understood Torah. He is the one who transmits the Torah. Moshe Kibel Torah Misina. That's Aspaklaria Me'ira. It is the clearest lens through which to perceive the world, is through the eyes of the Torah. That's what it is, which means Moshe Rabbeinu's eyes. To look at the world that Moshe Rabbeinu did. That's what it means, Aspaklaria HaMe'ira. That is the Torah Kedosha, which means looking through the world and seeing HaKadosh Baruch Hu. We noted the incredible insight of the Shla Kodesh that Aspaklaria She'ena Me'ira, which is what the other Nevi'im were zocher to, means you are looking through the lens that is somewhat muddied, somewhat opaque, which means that when you look through that lens, you see not just what is on the other side, but also your own reflection, right? That's what happens when you look through a lens that is slightly, you have a window that's very clear, you see directly through it. But if the window is not so clear, so then it's somewhat opaque. So then you see sort of what's on the other side and also sort of a reflection of yourself. Which is why all of the Nevi'im that describe the Kisei HaKavod of Hashem saw HaKadosh Baruch Hu b'dmut shel Adam. They saw HaKadosh Baruch Hu as, obviously anthropomorphically, but as a human being. They understood HaKadosh Baruch Hu through their own kelim, because that was the way that all the Nevi'im could understand HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Moshe Rabbeinu does not understand Hashem like that. Moshe Rabbeinu has a clarity, and that is called Torah. Torah is that clarity, the lens through which to see the world with total and utter clarity. Of course he did. From Bereshis to Dvarim. No, but Moshe Rabbeinu is, and we're just gonna describe that in 3 lines' time. He saw Chachmas Hashem, which is Hashem. Yes, but we see it through our own perspective, as much as we see it through the perspective of the Torah. Moshe Rabbeinu saw Torah as HaKadosh Baruch Hu wanted him to see Torah. Same thing. Same thing. It's the same thing. It's the same thing. Listen up. He says, through Torah, shebeseicha mishtakefes kol ma'alas ruach, turning over the page, kol ma'alas ruach ha'uma. That through Torah mishtakefes is peered through, right? From the Lashon Hashkifa. It is to peer through the malas ruach ha'uma, the greatness of the spirit of the nation, bein ruach hasguli ativ'i shel hashmita, both the natural specialness that is revealed through Shemitah, ubein ruach elyon, ruach Elokim Chaim shel Yovel, or that which comes gifted from HaKadosh Baruch Hu in the world of Yovel, Shemitah, which is that which we work towards achieving, Yovel, which HaKadosh Baruch Hu floods the world with that spirit of renewal and rejuvenation and return and tshuva. That is revealed through the choices of Klal Yisrael. We make those choices that trigger that response in the world called Yovel. We build up to it through the decisions that we make. All of that, which is ultimately through Torah, meaning Torah is the source of Shemitah, and Torah is the source of Yovel, and Torah is the Asma Klara Me'ira. It is the perspective of the Ratzon of Hashem in the world that we act on that Ratzon Hashem that is called Torah, and that is what creates this reality in the world. All of that, says Rav Kook, Kol Zman Shehi Mishtameres Berucha Ubefa'aleha, as long as it is guarded, it is watched over, it is observed, Berucha, in spirit, ubepala, and in action, within the nation and in the land and within the rubric of society, it gives strength and power to the nation. What is Rav Kook saying here? If you want this, you got to be shomer Torah mitzvahs. You have to be shomer Torah u'mitzvahs. If you want this, if you want a Eretz Yisrael and a nation called Klal Yisrael living in Eretz Yisrael that is able to transform humanity, that is able to fix up the mistakes, that is able to continuously rejuvenate ourselves and grow, trending upwards slowly and surely to a place and a society and a world that is Ratzon Hashem, it doesn't happen without being shomer Torah mitzvahs, both in the spirit of the law and in the letter of the law. You got to be shomer Torah mitzvahs, otherwise none of this works. It doesn't work to be in Eretz Yisrael without being shomer Torah mitzvahs and say, well, we're here, so it's great. That's not enough. Why? Because Shemitah and Yovel, and the power of Shemitah and Yovel to transform Klal Yisrael, are Torah. That is Torah. The mitzvah is the Torah. The Torah is the mitzvah. And the effect is as a result of all of this. You can't bifurcate it. You can't say, I want to be living in a world of Yovel without activating that world of Yovel. It comes as a result of our activities. It comes as a result of us making that a part of our lives. It doesn't help to not do that. You won't have Yovel without working towards it. You have to be shomer Torah u'mitzvahs in order for this to exist. And so he writes, Hadveikus be'elokim, that cleaving, that connection to HaKadosh Baruch Hu that we've described, which, as we noted, the Orach Chaim HaKadosh told us, V'atem hadveikim ba'Hashem elokim chaim, that the Rebbeinu Shalom is life. Kulchem hayom, then we are all present, then all of us are here. Kulchem hayom, we are whole, but also V'atem hadveikim ba'Hashem elokechem chaim kulchem hayom, that as much as we cleave to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, we are dobek to Hashem, then we are alive. So there is both life and shlemus that comes with a cleaving to Hashem. All of that, hara'anana, that freshness, that rejuvenation, misha'ashas hi az es nishmas hachaim shaloi, umeranenes es halev shel kol prat. It is now activated and it is beating in the heart of each individual through the observance of Torah mitzvahs. Hi halaches v'zeiremes al or ha'emuna ha'elokis. It is continuing and flowing and growing through the light of emunah of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, al pi ha'karasa shel ha'uma, through the recognition of the nation, mitzad nishmas skulasa hativis, through its natural proclivity to understand this. Meaning, as we've noted many, many times, Rav Kook has told us that we as individuals are naturally inclined to a relationship with Hashem. Klal Yisrael is naturally inclined to this. Recognition of that natural inclination, of our natural proclivity to dveikus b'Hashem, that then generates a desire to do what HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants, that beats within the heart of every single Jew. Asher beirurah hatoladetiyim shehi meuteres bahem, that the clarification that is required as a result of our birth, and we'll describe what that is, he meuteres bahem, is crowned through it, benizri Yeshua midar darim, with a crown of salvation from generation to generation. Heim machshirin es ha karasa ha'elokis hamiyuchedes lefi tzivyono haprati. These are hard words. Let's explain. Asher beirureha ha'toladetiyim, that the clarifications of their birth, he meuteres bahem, is crowned with them. Benizri Yeshua midar darim, with the crown of salvation from generation to generation. Him machshirin es hakarasa ha'elokis, that is what enables the recognition of godliness hamiyuchedes, which is unique and special, lefi tzivyona haprati, for the particularities of each individual. Let's describe. There is a...
Like each person brings his own peckle to the to this. This is the...
Yes. But each person has a thing to do with their peckle. You bring something, and then you got to do something with it. What is that? What is the thing that you are supposed to do? So, in Machshava, in Kabbalah, in Chassidus, all over the place, there is the notion of birurim, to be mevarer something. What does it mean to be mevarer? Clarify, right? The melacha of borer, for example, is to separate bad from good, to be mevarer something. There is an avoda of birur that every individual undergoes throughout our lives, which is, in a very deep and profound way, the avoda of each individual. And the avoda of humanity as a whole is to be mevarer. For example, let's say you have a guy that Baruch Hashem was very matzliach, made a lot of money, decides that he wants to build a yeshiva. So you say to him, that's wonderful. You want to build a yeshiva? That's a gewaldic thing. So he says, I'm gonna put down my money. I'm gonna build a yeshiva. Did he do a mitzvah? Absolutely, unquestionably, he did a mitzvah. He did a tremendous thing. Did that mitzvah affect his neshama in a very profound and meaningful way? Yes. But let's say at the same time that he's building the yeshiva, he also has like a shtickle, like feels good about this, like I'm the guy. There's a shtickle like covered in gaiva that exists there. Is that covered in gaiva good? No. Is giving the money for the yeshiva good? Is it the same activity? Yes. They come b'vas achas, right? So you have a guy, he's about gaiva, but he's building a yeshiva. So what do you want? Should he give the money or should he not? Sure, you should give the money. Absolutely. Right? Let's get it in writing, right? That's that's what you say. He said, absolutely, you should totally. Right? But else what this does to him. Sure. Right? But else this guy, he acquired for himself a tremendous amount of taiv. He has transformed his neshama. That's what we do. When we do ma'asim taivim, that is transformative to us as individuals. He has transformed himself immensely, positively, but also a shtickle negatively. Now, we would never say to him, don't do it. We'd say, absolutely, go ahead and do it. But there is now a mixture, right? There's a tarovis here. There's a tarovis of tov and ra and tov, and it's very hard to extricate the one from the other, right? Very hard. Because you have a guy who's doing immensely good things, wonderfully positive things. And yet at the same time, you still want to sit him down with like a Mesilas Yesharim and be like, maybe we should learn about Gaiva and Anova a little bit. And you're not going to say that to him because otherwise he's not going to build the yeshiva. So you don't. So what happens now? So his neshama now has acquired within him, he has now transformed himself primarily positively, but also a shtickle not. The tov came together with the ra. It came together. My dear sweet and holy friends, this is called etadas tov v'ra. There is a mixture here of tov and ra. There's tov. There's definitely, unquestionably, there is tov. Is there also ra? Yes. Which means that at some point in time, this neshama, this incredible, powerful, heilige neshama, is going to need to extricate that ra. Because you want it to be kula tov. And that's a big avoda. To somehow or another get to the point that you can extricate that ra from that. To be able to say, it's been 50 years since I built the yeshiva. I was a young man then, and I had a lot of gaiva, and I was very proud of myself for doing that. I want to do tshuva on the gaiva. Not on the yeshiva, chalila, on the gaiva. I want to fix that. I want to be mevarer the ra out of the tov. That's the koyach of birur. Now, that's a poshet example. But sometimes the example is much less poshet. Like much less poshet. You have a situation where somebody is, anybody from the outside could tell what's tov and what's ra there. That's not hard to tell. But sometimes you mamish don't know. Meaning the layers and layers of character and personality make everything so murkav and such a tarevis. Everything is tied up with everything else. It becomes like impossible to pull the one thing from the other. It's like you ever take out like headphones out of your pocket, and then the wire looks like a cholent, and then it's like half an hour before you can listen to the daf yomi because you have to like thread that wire through. It's like everything is just muddled up and messed up. You just don't know. So you have somebody that does like some business deal, gets like an opportunity to do a business deal, and says yes. I don't know why they said yes. What was the emotions that drove them to do that? A person has a reaction to something, then you wonder, what was that reaction? Where did that come from? Did that come from like a chelik inside of me that was tov, or a chelik inside of me that was lo tov? Like, where did that even come from inside of me? Is this something that I need to work on? Is that something that I need to fix? Is this something that is great and I need to like drill down on it and make greater? Like, where does it even come from? And you see that the way that people live their lives, the way that we all live our lives, is this mixture of tov and ra. And you see in Svarim, by the way, that this metzius of people having within them tov and ra comes out, and sometimes you can even bachush see it. And I'm sure some of you will probably be able to think of immediately people in your minds like this, that you see those complications one generation later. You'll see somebody that is tumultic in their avodas Hashem, and then they'll have like one kid that is like a Rosh Yeshiva, and another kid that's like off the derech. You'll see it, like in one family. And then like you look at like the father and you'll be like, I get where that came from. Like this kid took that chelek of his father and that kid took that chelek of his father. Like that happens, right? Now this isn't me saying it. This is the Ramban, many other Rishonim and Achronim, about the Avos. Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. had avoda in the world of Berurim. Avram Avinu had a Yishmael and a Yitzchak. And Yitzchak Avinu had a Yaakov and an Esav. And Yaakov was mitosa shleima. He managed, wasn't a pashat, but he managed to have 12 sons, all of whom were of Hashem. That wasn't so simple. It means that by the time it got to Yaakov, Yaakov was able to finish the birur. There wasn't yet another nation that needed to be extricated from within Yaakov. So now mitosa shleima, everything that comes from Yaakov is Klal Yisrael. Avram Avinu is Av Haman Goyim. There's like a lot that comes from Avram Avinu. Some of it is amazing. Some of it is not so great. There's a frightening Abarbanel. The Abarbanel writes that the Beis Hamikdash represents the relation between the Avos and the Beis Hamikdash represents the longevity and the success of it. Avram Avinu refers to the place of the Beis Hamikdash as Har. Bahar Hashem Yeroeh. Bahar Hashem Yeroeh. Yitzchak Avinu refers to the Beis Hamikdash as Sodeh. Yaakov Avinu refers to it as Bais. Har, Sodeh, and Bais. Says the Abarbanel. Avram Avinu's Beis Hamikdash is the first Beis Hamikdash, but it was not Mevurar, which is why Avram Shekar Har, he calls it a mountain, says the pasuk Har Tzion Sheshamim, the desolate mountain. That's the destruction of the first Beis Hamikdash. Yitzchak calls it a Sadeh. Tzion Sadeh Techaresh. Tzion will be plowed over like a Sadeh. Yaakov Shekar Bayis, that's called Beis Olamim Ki Beisi Beis Tefillah Yikar Lechalamim. He's mevarer. He's mevarer. He's already cleaned up. Which means that which we are mevarer as individuals, we are nourished to our children. We give over to our children that which we have fixed, that which we have completed. Now, of course, this is all things being equal and not having external factors. This is in a world of Geula, where Klal Yisrael is a dominant culture. And then every tati that works on himself is nourished to his children that which he worked on. And then every generation gets better and gets stronger and gets greater and gets wiser. And the mistakes become less prevalent and more incidental. And the increments of chatayim become fewer and further between. Outside of Eretz Yisrael, in a world of Golos, so then there's all of these outside influences that mess up our children. That's possible. Without being in a dominant Jewish culture, we're not in control of all of that. We're under the shilton of the Umas Ha'olam. So even if you have a father that does amazing work and a mother that does amazing work and raises beautiful children, the world can mess them up. That's not supposed to be like that. It's supposed to be that in Eretz Yisrael, Klal Yisrael is a dominant culture. We live with Hashras HaShechina, and everything that you work on, you give over to your children. That's an investment that you give, and it goes from generation to generation. That which you are mevarer becomes the starting point for your kids. I told the story a little while ago. The Sasemis gave the mashal like this. The Sasemis, Schus Yogan Aleinu, the Sasemis became Rebbe at the age of 22. Which was the second time he was offered to become Rebbe. Sasemis was the grandson of the Chidush Arim, Yitzchak Meir of Ger. The Chidush Arim had a number of children that all of whom died in his lifetime. He had two children that lived long enough to have grandchildren. First cousins that became Rebbes. One was the Sasemis and one was the Tzaddik of Pilz. There was some Mechutanim. The Sasemis was the eldest grandson of the Chidush Harim son Avram, which is why the Imre Yamis is named Avram Moshe. That's after the Sasemis' father. So the Chidush Harim basically raised his grandson. The Chiddush Harim was niftar when the Sas Emes was 18, and they came to the Sas Emes and they said to him, "Will you be Rebbe?" And he said, "No, absolutely not. Find another Rebbe." So they did. They went to Gershon Henech of Alexander. Henech of Alexander was the Rebbe who was actually older than the Chiddush Harim. He was Migdolei Hasidim, and he became the Rebbe of Ger for 4 years. And then he was niftar. And then at the age of 22, they came back to the Sas Emes and they said to him, "Will you be the Rebbe?" And he finally agreed. He was strong-armed into it. He was Rebbe from the age of 22, I think, to the age of 56. He was niftar young. At the age of 56, he was niftar. They said when he was niftar, there were 30,000 Hasidim that came to his levaya. They were standing like on top of the cars of the trains, like they were holding on to the cars of the trains to get to the Sas Emes levaya. They asked the Sas Emes, "How did you become a Sas Emes? How do you become that?" So he says, "I'll tell you a mashal." He says, "Yeah, I wrote about this once or twice, and I've told this in shul a few times. It's a very kedai mashal to understand all of what Rav Kook is saying here." He says there was a man that decided that he wanted to climb the highest mountain in the world. You know this mashal? Man wanted to climb the highest mountain in the world. So he trained for months and months and months, and he raised money, and he has an expedition, and he has a team, and he's v'chule. And then finally, the day comes, and he begins the ascent of this mountain. It's a month to climb. I don't know, Everest, whatever it is. So he's climbing. I don't know if the Sas Emes knew of Everest like we do. I don't know. He's climbing. Finally, it takes him a month. He gets to the top of the mountain. He gets to the top of the mountain, and as he gets there, he sees there's a little boy hanging out there. He looks at him and he goes, "Ingela, how did you get here? I've been climbing for a month. I'm like the best mountain climber alive today. I've been climbing for a month. How did you get here?" He says, "What do you mean, how did I get here? I was born here. My parents climbed the mountain 35 years ago, and they built a home, and we've got a little hut over there. I was born here." So the Sas Emes says, don't be so spoiled from the fact that I am the Sas Emes. I was born there. You look at my grandfather, look at my father, you look at the mishpacha. It's not the same thing. I was born here. I had a different upbringing. I think in America they call it privilege. Yes, I was born there. I was privileged to be born at the top of the mountain. Says Rav Kook, that is what every single Jew gives to their children. You give the tov and you give the not so tov. But all of the birurim that you achieve in your life, you give over to your children. Both when you have children and when you raise children. The children are a reflection of you. They're a reflection of the good in you and the reflection of the not so good in you. That's called birurim. This is hard to say. There's a devastating Me'ashilayach. Me'ashilayach in Parshas Vayeshev asks the question. He says, I don't understand. How is it that Er and Onan, grandsons of Yaakov Avinu, they don't want to have children? How is it that they don't want to have children? Yaakov's entire life is about having children. His whole life is to build the Shvatim. Why is it? How could it be that Yaakov Avinu has grandsons that don't want to have children? Aaron, no. Because Baruch Hu takes them out of this world because they don't want to have children. Says the Me'ashilayach. It's hard to even say this. He says, the Pasuk says at the beginning of Parashat Vayeshev Yaakov Eretz Megurei Aviv. Medrash says, Bikesh Yaakov Leishav V'Shalva. Yaakov Avinu wanted to sit in peace. So, Rogzah Shal Yosef is what comes as a result of it. HaKadosh Baruch Hu says to him, no, Yaakov, you don't get to sit in peace. Which means that it was wrong for him to want that. That was a piece of Yaakov Avinu that was not tov. Now for Yaakov Avinu, what was that? What was that? He wanted to sit b'shalva, he wanted to sit beis medrash, he wanted to learn, he wanted to teach. But there was a chelik of that was against the Ratzon HaBorer, which was, HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants you to build the world. And that came out in his grandchildren. He had grandchildren that Ashtikal didn't want to build the world. Like Barakim Lashavas Yitzhara. HaKadosh Baruch Hu did not want the world to be desolate. Yaakov Avinu didn't want to engage with the world completely. It came out in his grandchildren. It happens. Yaakov Avinu has 12 sons and many, many grandchildren. There's 2 grandchildren, 2 Einiklach, that represented the shtickle loy toiv inside of him. So he was mavara that. This notion of being morish, that which you achieve in your ruchnius to your children, that's Rav Kook's point here. So he says everybody comes with a pekel. Your job is to clarify out your mishigasim so that what you leave behind is a more polished product. That's the crown that is passed from generation to generation. That you're makir the Ribbon Shalom within you. Yaakov Avinu wants to sit and learn. Is that good? Yes. Is there a piece of it that is not entirely perfect? Yes. And it comes out in his grandchildren. So it has to be mavur. Ad chut asara, because it's true. It's true. The har covers all of the muddles and mixtures and everything that we are. You have to pull apart. You have to thread that needle and just, it's very hard. I think today people go to therapists for these things, right? Like, people sit down with a therapist and like rehash conversations that they had with their mother 60 years earlier. Why? Because in those conversations there is good and there is not good. Eitz hadas tov v'ra, it's mixed. Fixing the chait of the Eitz hadas tov v'ra means pulling that apart, saying this is tov and this is ra, this is emes, this is sheker. That's the avoda. So let's now see this inside. He says that is asher beirureha hatoladatiyim shehi meuteres bahem, through the clarification of their birthright, of that which everybody comes into the world with, is meuteres bahem, is that crown benizra Yeshua midar darim, the crown of salvation from generation to generation. Heima machshirin es hakarasa ha'elokis ha'miyucheles lefi tzivyona ha'prati. That is what enables each person to be that which HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants them to be in the world. The notion of Yeshua, bedafka, chavra, is Yom Kippur. Is tshuva that comes, mila'el, comes from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That's called Yeshua. The David Hashem, Oiri v'yishi, Oiri, when's Oiri? Rosh Hashanah. V'yishi, Yom Kippurim. Kis B'nei B'sukkah, that's on Sukkot, right? Yishi, the notion of Yeshua, salvation, that is from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. But you have to be a kli, to be mekabel that, right? Which means you have to be shomer Torah mitzvahs. By the way, I mentioned this to some chavra a little while ago. In the Siddur HaShla, which I've been using a little bit in the last little while, the Shla has, in the Siddur HaShla, they take out the words in the morning. So we say, right? So the Shla takes out, quotes from Nabu Drum, take out the words Ma Yeshua Seinu. You don't say Ma Yeshua Seinu. Why? Ma Kechenu, what's our strength? Fine. Ma Chayenu, what's our life? Ma Yeshua Seinu, what's our salvation? What do you mean what's our salvation? There's only one thing that Ma Yeshua Seinu. You don't throw up your hands and say, what saves us? There is something that saves you. So he takes out those words, Ma Yeshua Seinu, it comes from the Abu Dhram like that. You don't say Ma Yeshua Seinu. Yeshua comes from HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Yishi. That is HaKadosh Baruch Hu giving over to you. Gives over to you. That's how it works. So he says like this. This recognition, this special recognition goes and acts. And it continues and it creates a result from that overwhelmingly great goodness of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that is resonant within each individual in the world. It's there. He mitiva oisai, it is that which is good to us. Misagelas oisai eleha behatbi'ah by estivyoina haprati. It is the reawakening of that resonance rotzen Hashem that is within each and every one of us, that just requires us to fix ourselves up, to be mavar tovara, to recognize, to realize, to bring ourselves to fruition. Umachshira soiba zel emalei chedrei kol ruach v'nefesh berikshei Torah v'chedvas yosher. It enables each one of us to fill up the compartments of our spirit and our soul with feelings of purity and a simcha, an enjoyment, chedvas yosher, that comes from that simcha of knowing that what we are doing is correct. That's what we call, I think in English, a confidence, to know that what you are doing is right. Which is, by the way, one of the things that people struggle with in life, bichlal. How do I know that what I do is right? I think what I do is right. I don't know. Maybe what I do is messed up with like other egos and agendas and like outside influences. Chedvas yosher means I know what I'm doing is right. I am reflective. What I do is reflective of the way HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants me to be. It is my optimized state of being. It's called chedvas yosher. Hamevusasim benitzchiyosam be'ednom ha'eloki, that is based in perpetuity, in eternity. Be'ednom ha'eloki, with that beauty of understanding of what Hashem wants from us. Shehu matzilam mikol yeush, that saves us from despair. Umisagvam yesha adei ad, and infuses within us a eternity of being saved. That's what it means to be shomer Torah mitzvahs. Keep the mitzvahs so that you can activate who you are supposed to be, so that Klal Yisrael can be who we are supposed to be, so that you can figure out what is good and what is not so good, to finally separate Tov and Ra from one generation to the next, to eventually turn the Eitz Hadas Tov V'Ra into Tov and Ra, and to be able to find an Eitz HaChaim. I'll see you guys next week. Those that haven't yet contributed to the BRS Global campaign this week, this is the week to do it. brsonline.org/global. If you like any of the Torah that we're teaching, help us out and have a wonderful day. You can hold on to it, or I'll hold on to it for next week. Either.
What are you learning again?
We are learning Rav Kook's introduction to Shabbos arts.
Beautiful.
And this
I know to cook something.
Yeah.
So I'm debating doing a cook on Karbanos.